let us begin.
Like I'm on a roller coaster. Go down the.
Guess what? I have never ridden a roller coaster.
That should be like one of your fun facts. You're like 2 truths and a lie.
I would get everyone because who hasn't ridden a roller coaster? Welcome, everyone. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining us today for our Nomad Stories event. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, let us know where you're from and also what you're working on. If you also click on the bottom, there is a poll, and you can let us know where you're at on your location, your journey on location independence, and we will get started here shortly. Wait, I'm not even seeing the chat. Oh, there it is. Lots of different windows. Perfect. Let's see. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. If you're just joining us, we are doing some quick introductions in the chat. Let us know where you're from and what you're working on. And if you also click the poll, we have one of those going right now. And we will get started shortly. Oh. And you said, Elliot, it's already dark there?
Yeah, it's been getting dark so early. It's crazy. Sad. Yesterday was the first day of fall, right?
You're right.
Goodbye, summer.
Hey, Kelly from San Diego. Nice. Ooh, your teacher.
Hi, Britt.
Hey, Britt.
It's so funny that you can't see anybody.
Yes. Hey, Henry. Ooh, you're in Costa Rica. I'm jealous about that.
Britt, come to Portugal. Let me special.
That's right. Everyone is very special here. Henry, where are you at in Costa Rica?
This is like throwback to AIM.
San Jose, nice. And hey, Abel, I saw your message in there. I owe you a message, actually. I have a question, a follow-up from our last event with you with product management. Did you see Trini's question, Elliot?
Sí, vale. Actually, in Portuguese, I'm practicing that right now.
I've lost all my Portuguese from Teresa and Tamara's classes. Oh, nice, Henry. Good to know that you're familiar with our location in Santa Teresa. Ariana, I love your question. Is traveled allowed right now? Sometimes. Depends where you're at, right? There's always there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. Welcome, everyone. For those who are just joining us, make sure you find your way to the chat, introduce yourself, let us know your name, where you're from, what you're working on. And we also have a poll launched so you can let us know where you're at on your journey to location independence. And we'll get started here soon. Hey, Megan and Esther. Ooh, Colorado, Austin. Love both of those places. Oh, Sterling. Hello, hello. I think we've been chatting, right? On Instagram. Nice. And Emily, San Diego. We got a couple of people here from San Diego. Awesome. All right.
You're from Texas, Christina, right? Or is it Colorado?
I am originally from Texas, yes.
Texas,
but
okay, that's what it is.
I've had family.
But you did a stint in Colorado.
Kind of.
Kind
I've
of.
always
Okay.
had family who's lived there, so I always have a reason to go visit.
Got
Um,
it.
so yeah, it's a great place to escape the Texas summer heat.
What part of Texas are you from?
I grew up north of Dallas, and
Uh,
then I lived in Austin for about 6 years. And Enrique, you're a little quiet over there. You're in Texas too, right?
I mean, yeah, based in Austin.
Nice, nice. All right, everyone. I know people are going to continue to roll in, but I think we should just go ahead and get started. Kudos to everyone here for being on time. Thank you so much for joining us. One thing I did want to note before we get started here, if you do have any questions, we have a Q&A box that you can throw those into, and our panelists will answer them at the end, or as we're going through, if they see something that's super exciting and urgent, we'll get to that as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. So just a brief overview about myself and about Outsite. I work for Outsite. I am our head of community and events. So I work on a ton of different things, including putting together panels like this with our awesome members. And basically what Outsite is, we are a platform of co-living spaces, and we have community and perks that are designed for the remote work era. We've been around for 4 or 5 years, so remote work and location flexibility and location independence, it's nothing new to us. It's actually just the tools that we use to design the life that we want, and you're gonna hear a lot about that today. And so we have a network of about, I think, 25 spaces around the world. We're on 3 continents, so you can kind of jump from one space to the next, and we have Wi-Fi in the houses and desk, and really also other people in the house, so you can have friends while you travel. Although solo travel has its own wonderful place, I think, in everyone's journey. And to stay with Outsite, you do need to become a member. We just went members only this summer. We have a lifetime membership and an annual membership option. You can find more information about that on the website. All right, now we're gonna turn it over to our panelists, and I just kind of want to know from you guys. Let's give everyone a little introduction. Like, where are you from? Where are you currently based? What do you do for work right now? And what would you consider your location independence status? And maybe how has this changed with COVID in this pandemic era? And I'm going to bring it over to Enrique first.
Hello, everybody. I'm Enrique. Originally from Mexico City, but I live in Austin. I'm currently about an hour north of Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. I am an engineer for Salesforce, and my independent status, I'm trying home base right now.
And where's your home base?
So it's just 30 minutes south of Austin. And I chose that for a specific reason, and maybe we can talk about that in a little bit, but kind of allows me to both have a home base and at the same time be able to travel.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Who wants to go next?
I can go. Hey everyone, I'm Sumto, and I'm originally from Nigeria, but live in Los Angeles. I'm currently based in Los Angeles. And for work, I'm an entrepreneur. Specifically, I am a content marketer and coach. And my status right now is home base. I am currently based in LA, which is my place I've lived for 20 years. I used to be nomadic, but after COVID, I decided to kind of stay home for a bit until this kind of dies down, and then I plan to return to being nomadic again.
Cool. And hi, everyone. I'm Elliot. I am from, it's always a funny question for me because I never know how to answer, but I'd say Los Angeles. Spent the last 6 or 7 years there before going nomadic, and am currently based in Lisbon. For work, I work in creative advertising, and right now I'd consider myself home base kind of bound here in Lisbon due to COVID, but have definitely been more or less nomadic for the last 2 years.
Nice. Thank you, everyone. So kind of just going back to the beginning, what inspired your desire to create a location independent lifestyle? Was it something that was more driven by work? Was it something more personal? I know a lot of people kind of come to this lifestyle in a very different way and have different reasons. So just kind of curious what really sparked your interest in it.
Okay, I guess I could go first. So for me, after college, I did work the traditional 9 to 5, and I realized quickly that it wasn't for me. I just didn't really fit in with that regimented work schedule. So I moved to Spain for a year to kind of, travel for a bit and explore my options. And that's when I actually learned about the world of online business and people who were making a full-time living online and being able to work anywhere in the world. And I was really intrigued by that, specifically with travel blogging, because I love travel so much. And I saw so many people making a full-time income by sharing travel tips and travel recommendations. So I decided to create my first business, which was a travel blog. And from there, I expanded to other types of businesses like coaching and, kind of grew my business from there. And that's what really led me to create this location independent lifestyle, because I really wanted to have control over, where I work, when I work, what I work on, who I work with, and being able to move around and see the world as I work was just invaluable to me.
Totally. I relate to so much of what you said. That control and the freedom. What about you, Elliot?
I think for me, it's a hybrid. I kind of came into it unknowingly. I was at a job, a more traditional 9 to 5 job for a few years, and just wasn't everything I was looking for. But also I realized toward the end before I left that job that it wasn't the right job for me. So I started looking for a few other jobs, and had realized that, I could do what I was doing at my current company for myself on a more or less freelance basis, or start my own company, and had a little bit of money saved up. So I thought, I'll try this for a few months and we'll see what happens. So I kind of quit my job about 2 years ago, and it was scary to do, but I always knew that I could go back and get another job if it didn't work out. And so right as I did that, I had some friends invite me to Australia. And so I kind of quit my job, went to Australia for 2 weeks, got some headspace, and I realized that toward the end of my trip there, I was doing a little bit of work from my laptop, and kind of came to the conclusion that I could be doing my work from anywhere. And so as I started building that business and gaining more work and clients, it kind of occurred to me that I could be doing that from anywhere. And so started building that location independent lifestyle. Similar to you, Christina, I got rid of my apartment lease and sold my car, and kind of evolved into that until I went full-time remote.
Nice. I still haven't caught up on the car part. I was just texting my friend in LA. I'm like, hey, is it still on the street?
Is it still running?
Still running. It's still there. I don't know about the running part, but it should be fine.
Okay, cool. I have a great resource for you if you want to sell it. So we'll chat.
Okay, sounds great. All right, Enrique, bring us home.
Yeah, a little bit like Elliot, I kind of stumbled upon that. I was living in Alabama and wondering why I was living in Alabama. So I really wanted to keep the job that I had, which was a regular job, 9 to 5 office job. So I just convinced my boss at the time to let me keep the job as I was planning my move to Austin. So I began working remotely when I first moved to Austin, having just gone to Europe for the first time, like a couple months before. I really had the travel bug, and then just naturally I started working remotely, and I realized, wow, I can maybe also work at the same time as I travel. So I went to Spain for a little while, and I just tried just same US schedule. but from a different location. And you know, sometimes you don't know if you're really going to enjoy the place if you're working during the day and you only get to see the place in the evenings and the weekends. And I realized that you can absolutely enjoy the place, meet a lot of people anyway. It doesn't, you know, affect the working during the day doesn't affect things. So that really just kind of, you know, lit that bulb in my head, and I really love that. And ever since, every job that I've looked for has to be remote. That's just you know, something really important.
I think that's a really good note, if I can chime in, is even if you are at a traditional company, when you are remote, you don't have the dynamic of being in an office and having someone breathing down your neck. And it's more about getting the work done than sitting in a cubicle for 8 hours. And so for me, I've found that as long as everything's getting done, I can go and, you know, work for 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon and take a 2-hour break in between, or split up my day how works a bit better for my schedule. So I hear you there. Or work from the beach, as it looks like you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's also it's becomes really apparent very quickly when you're working remotely if you're actually being productive and getting your done.
Very true.
Everyone, your team realizes it, you realize it, yeah, sometimes you realize how much time you were actually wasting in the office. All right, let's move to our next strategy, or our next slide about work strategy. So we kind of have already touched on this, like if you actually sought out a remote role or if you decided to create your own, or I guess I did have a question about this for you, Enrique. Was it hard to convince your company that you needed to go remote, and have you switched companies since then, and have you had to have that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. It was definitely an interesting conversation before, because it was just a very traditional company. There were no remote people at all, and I was also a people manager at the time, so I really had to sweet talk my manager. Fortunately I had worked there for a long time, so they trusted me. But yeah, it was a tough negotiation, and then after that, it was a lot easier, just in the sense that I just looked for jobs that were remote already, so it was less of convincing and more of a natural thing. And also it probably meant they had at least a certain percentage of the workforce was already remote, so I wasn't the only one, but it was definitely tricky for sure.
Yeah, it's like it's a weird balance of wanting to ask and making sure that you can, and but also not. I've heard of like coworkers being jealous of other people getting these privileges, so I think it just depends on the situation. But hopefully, you know, since this pandemic has really shifted the conversation around remote work, maybe those conversations won't be as hard now, and it won't be as unexpected or scary for the company to deal with.
One of the things I'm kind of curious about is if you feel like you miss out on opportunities when a majority of, obviously not now, but a majority of the office is in the office and you're not. Do you feel as if you ever miss out, like being passed up for a role or a job, or like team meetings or socializing, that sort of thing, being out of that community and only being there digitally?
Is that for me?
Yeah, I think so. It's something, if you want to talk about it too, you know? Yeah.
I'll just jump in real quick. Yeah, I do, especially at first. I mean, this was 8 years ago when I first became remote, so it wasn't really a thing. And yeah, it's just the processes weren't set up to have conversations online, to do more async stuff. But I just kind of I just thought about what was important for me, and maybe if I was passed on for a different role or promotion or anything like that, was that worth enough? Was that my focus? Is that what I really care about? Or what do I appreciate the most? And I think, like anybody here probably, just you value your location independence, and it just becomes it becomes more important sometimes than just traditional, the traditional things that you seek for in your role. So so maybe, but I don't really care.
Nice.
Well,
There's trade-offs. There's
perspective.
trade-offs. And I'm just curious, do any of you, in addition to the jobs you have, do you have any side hustles or passive income streams that kind of help support this lifestyle? And this is like another question that's related to money that came up on our last Nomad stories that I thought was really interesting. Are you planning for retirement while you're doing all of this in terms of like your budgeting and everything?
Well, for me, through my businesses, I do create passive income through like affiliate marketing and ads because I run websites. In terms of planning for retirement, yeah, I do have an IRA, and I do think about saving money for the long term. But I mean, I'm also just like more focused on just growing my businesses and taking them to like 7 figures and beyond. And I feel like once you grow your business, like the money can take care of itself in the long term. So I'm not really as concerned with like where I'm going to be at age 65 right now. I'm more concerned about like the next 5 to 10 years of like growing my business.
Nice. That's a really awesome perspective.
I wish I was more like that, more open to risk. I think I'm a little bit more risk adverse in the sense that it's something I think about a lot. You don't have your traditional kind of ways in which to set aside money. You're not getting a big pension, or I guess pensions aren't really a thing anymore, but it's a different way to think about saving when you're working for yourself. But I've actually, through my own company, set up a 401k system and then also an IRA. And so what I like to think is that I'm trying to pace and keep track with what I would be doing if I were in a traditional setting, in a traditional job, and be saving the same way. But it's really just being thoughtful about it. And I had no idea what I was doing when I started 2 years ago. And I've really taken a lot of great information from people who are much smarter in the world of finance than me. So I'd say reach out to people who who are accountants or just have more knowledge in the space, and that can be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Elliot also, I wish I was more like you sometime in that sense. I've had just very traditional, IC jobs, and it's funny because I think I'm trying to do both things at the same time. I want to live, I want to travel, I want to explore, but at the same time, I do worry a lot about the future. And so I am saving on my 401k, taking, I'm actually, what I'm trying to do is also, for example, I bought a home 13 months ago, but I try to look for a place that wasn't very expensive. So I had to be further out from Austin. It's actually in a different city called Kyle, south of it, which is 30 minutes away from Austin. But what I'm currently trying to experiment is, can I reduce my expenses enough that I can have both things? So I was lucky enough that I was able to pay off my house in 13 months, and hopefully that kind of opens other opportunities for travel and for savings. And I don't know if this experiment is gonna work or what, but I'm gonna see if I can do both things at the same time.
Nice. It's like, it really is nice to have a home base, but also be able to have the flexibility to travel whenever, wherever. I mean, that's the dream in a sense.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely my dream, of having a home base, of being able to purchase a home or an apartment and not have to worry about paying rent when I'm not there, and then potentially rent it out while I'm traveling, but also have that space to call home. But that's on the horizon.
And it definitely doesn't mean that you have to make adjustments. So the place that I bought is inexpensive. which is why you're able to pay it off so quickly. Is not that it was a great home like right down in Austin or anything like that, but it was a comfortable space, something that I knew was within, below my possibilities. And but I'm okay making those adjustments if it means that I can have a space. And like you, Elliot, I would also worry if I have a place that I'm paying a lot of money for. I will feel guilty if I'm not there, And so another part of the experiment is going to be how long can I be away from that space and still feel good about it.
Totally.
100%. All right, we have some questions on our next slide that are very closely related to this, especially when we're talking about the home. I wanted to touch just a little bit on some logistics about how you kind of set things up for yourself. We already talked about a little bit about home base or no home base, but I am curious to see what y'all's considerations were in making your decision, and also what you've kind of done with your things, if you've kept them, if you sold them, donate, storage, and if you did have a vehicle, what did you do with it? Who wants to get us started?
Well, for me, I did try being nomadic for like a couple of months, and then I realized I actually prefer having a home base and being able to travel to different places for periods of time and then go back home to LA. So that's kind of the model I reverted back to. And I did sell my car because I was kind of moving around all the time, so I didn't really need to have a car. In terms of storage, I didn't really have to, everything was at home, my house, so I didn't really have to store anything or donate anything, but I did sell my car because I didn't really need it. And yeah, so if you don't really need a vehicle if you're not staying at home that often. So I didn't feel the need to keep my car and keep paying for it.
Yeah, and you said you were on the road for a couple of months before you realized that you kind of wanted that home base and your own bed to go back to, and yeah.
Definitely, because I'm very close to my family also, so I didn't want to be like away from them for so long, and then living on the road, and then being on my own. And sometimes it can get lonely, like living on your own for so long. So I kind of prefer to come home and see my family, see my friends, and then pack up and go somewhere else for let's say a month or two, and then come back home and then see my family, stay in my house for a couple of weeks, and then go somewhere else.
Enrique?
So yeah, interestingly, I think I tried both. So I was nomadic for about 2 years, and I put everything in storage, and it was that exercise of coming back to Austin. Let me go back to my storage unit and try to go through my stuff and kind of refresh before the next trip. It was that combined with just doing it for a while that I did feel a little bit exhausted of it, and I just thought, wouldn't it be great to have a better storage unit where I can actually lay things out and put art on the walls. So that's basically what inspired me to see, well, maybe I do need a home base. But I don't know what's gonna be like, because sometimes things do anchor you down, and I do find myself worrying if I'm somewhere like, oh, I have a place I need to take care of. And so it's a bit something to think about, and who knows how it will turn out. But I try both.
For me, I started out having a home base. I kept my apartment in Los Angeles and was in and out and would do a month on, a month off. As I mentioned, I kind of started in Australia for a few weeks, then went back over Europe and then back. And I think for me, that's after spending a year not having a home base, especially during COVID season, if you will. But it's really nice to have a place to come home to. I don't think that has to be, the definition of home is really varied. So whether that's just committing to being in a place for 6 months, or just having a place that is going to be have that sense of home, whatever it might be. But yeah, so I've done both. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I'd love to eventually have that home base, and money plays a big part. I don't want to be just paying rent for somewhere where I'm not living, especially in like a larger U.S. city where it's going to be a higher cost. But I also, there's a lot to appreciate about that kind of, I don't know if I could do it forever, but just the fluidity of being able to move from place to place and not having any ties. I think, as you mentioned, it's very freeing. You don't have, you know, maybe you book an Airbnb for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and after that, the world's your oyster. So it's kind of fun. What else? Donate, sell. So I did this, had a home base for about 6 months, and then decided to go totally nomadic. I sold just about everything I own. All I kept was one box, which I shipped to my parents' house. Had like my college diploma and maybe like a few memorial memory things. And then I started just with a suitcase and a backpack, and that's what I had. That's everything I owned for about a year. During the pandemic, I bought a bike and I have now brought that to Lisbon and really enjoyed biking. So my load's gotten a little bit heavier, but definitely still pretty lightweight.
Wait,
then
you flew with your bike?
I did, yeah. So I brought
Wow.
it over here.
Commitment.
It's relatively easy, actually. I think just the cost of a checked bag, so it was like $25 to bring over. Yeah, it depends on the airline.
Great tip.
Yeah.
So you like dismantle it and then put it in like a storage, like luggage thing, or how do you?
So you can go to like pretty much any bike store, and they have a bunch of boxes from the bikes that they have, and just ask for one. I actually bought a bike bag to fly with, but yeah, there are a bunch of ways to do it. Oh, and then car. Yeah, so when I sold everything, I sold my car, and was actually in a lucky position. I had a lease, and I bought out the lease, and then was able to sell the car for more than I bought it from the bank from, so made money back on it. So ended up working out well.
That's wild. I don't think I've ever heard that about someone with a lease.
Well, I mean, it wasn't overall net positive, but through that transaction. So,
Yes,
yeah.
Abel needs to know more about this.
We'll chat.
Awesome. All right. Now on to some more fun questions that we've kind of also touched around, and really about location independence. How do you determine where you want to go? How do you determine how long you want to stay? And have these things changed over time since you've been on the road? I think things have kind of shifted in general because of the pandemic, if you're on the road right now. But kind of curious to hear y'all's thoughts on that. And then we'll jump into the next questions in a little bit.
I'll kick this one off just because I haven't yet. How do you determine where you want to go? Last year, which was my really nomadic year, it was all determined by friends. And it was wild because as soon as people started figuring out that I was, for lack of a better term, without a home and traveling 24/7, they would invite me to go on their vacations. And so I would know that I'd have a friend going to Iceland or to Bali or to Buenos Aires or whatever, and I'd kind of plan to go for a few weeks to that place, and then I'd get to visit a friend for a little bit and then spend a bit longer exploring the city and seeing it somewhat. So that was kind of a fun way to do it because like I had a friend text me saying, I'm going to Oktoberfest, do you want to go? And we did Germany for a little while, and I'd never been to Germany. And so kind of a fun way to explore the world. And not something I would have been able to do had I had a more traditional job, because it was a lot of flexibility of like, I'm going to take on a lot of work because I know I have 6 weeks available right now, and then maybe less work for these 2 weeks while I'm on this trip or whatever. So appreciated that flexibility a lot. Duration has definitely changed. It used to be like I would do 3 days in Amsterdam and then off to the next city. And like, I think everyone when they're starting out does that. And in a way you have to learn that it's just not sustainable. it's really fun, but in terms of working, it's impossible. You can't focus. It's not sustainable for your like mental health because you're not sleeping and you're like on planes all the time. And Christina will mock me in a very kind way, but I was just all over the place. So I've definitely learned to spend less time or more time in a place, and you really get to know it more, build relationships, build a solid understanding of the city and its culture, and more of a lot. It's just a better experience, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Should I pass it on and maybe come back? I don't want to blab too much.
Yeah, I have a question. Well, I have two notes real quick. It was funny because as you were talking about staying in one location longer and you know, it just being more sustainable, we were all of us, everyone was just shaking their head because I think part of the location independence and kind of nomad life, it can be a little glamorized, and you also think that, oh, you're going from one location to the next, and everything's like very easy. And when you're actually working, it's kind of hard to kind of maintain that balance of life and work and being able to explore and really get to know the place you're at. So yeah,
Yep.
definitely think the longer we stay, it's just better overall for us. And I know you said you were jumping on some vacations with your friends. Was that hard to navigate with them, like them being on a vacation and you not being on vacation?
I was very transparent. I learned after the first time I did it, and it didn't work out very well. It did not work out well, but I just had to set boundaries. And after I did it a few more times, I said, you know, yeah, I'd love to meet up with you, but I'm not here to go on the vacation with you. I'm here to be in the same city and we can do some things together, but I'm not like joining you on your trip. And so it was good to do that because that way they would either plan to do a solo trip or just plan around that expectation. So it worked a lot better.
That's great advice. Great advice. All right. Anyone else want to jump in with their kind of place consideration?
For me, I have a travel blog, so that kind of determines a lot of where I go. I base it on where my audience wants to know about, and also my own bucket list. So like my audience is like mainly Black travelers who want to know about like traveling in Spain and like Europe. So in the beginning, I end up traveling a lot in Europe, just like for gather content to write for my blog. And then the other part of how I choose where to go is just like I have a really long bucket list of like places I just want to see for different reasons, like historical or just like the beauty of it. Could be a variety of different reasons. And for how long, yeah, like Elliot, I did used to do like 3 days in Amsterdam or 3 days in Budapest. And I realized like you don't really get to know a place in 3 days. So nowadays I do definitely try to stay at least like 3 weeks, a month, or even more in each location. Yeah, so like the duration has definitely changed over time. From when I first started traveling, I just wanted to see a little bit of everywhere. So I just hop from place to place, like 2 to 3 days. And nowadays I just want to get to know a place like really deeply, and I plan to stay there a little bit longer.
I think that is such a good point as well, just because like getting to know a place, between you and Christina's point is, if you're actually working, and that can vary from whatever your hours are, but you're spending time working. I mean, it's not like you're on vacation exploring. And so you really need that time, because otherwise you're either not going to work or you're not going to actually be in a city, or just going to be in an office or co-work in that city, but not actually in the city.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree as far as the length of time. I like to say that a month is a good amount of time, at least. Just for those same reasons, Elliot. It takes longer to really see the place, but I also do love feeling like for a little moment that I'm a bit of a local. It was great when you actually start seeing some of the same people, or folks start to recognize you, the places that you go. And it just feels really good. I feel more connected. Yeah, it feels great. It feels more authentic.
100%. And Samtu, can you tell everyone the name of your blog, and maybe you could throw a link in the chat?
Yeah, sure. It's somtoseeks.com. So yeah, I could enter it in the chat. Yeah. It talks about solo travel, mainly in Europe, but also expanding to like South America and the Caribbean.
Nice. Oh wait, I think
I
you
will.
sent it to us panelists. Can you change it to send to everyone?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
true. I'll find this in attendees.
Everyone, if you're putting stuff in the chat, everyone, make sure you're sending it to all panelists and all attendees so everyone can see it.
Gotcha.
All panelists.
And so everyone's you've all been on your location independence journey for a while now. And I'm kind of wondering, where did co-living come into this for you? When did you first learn about it, discover about it? What was kind of the interest there? And yeah, also I guess how'd you find out about Outsite?
So my friend dragged me to, not drug, dragged, dragged me to some event that was going on. A friend in LA had a startup and they were hosting a yoga and tea or something event at the Venice Outsite house. I didn't know what Outsite was. It was like an afternoon that I had nothing better to do on a Saturday. And I was like, beach yoga, meet some people, whatever, it sounds fun. So I went, and it was kind of a weird, like I didn't know what was going on. We got there late. Everyone was sitting around drinking tea in this house that I didn't know who owned it. I didn't know what was going on. And then we all went and did yoga after. And I was like, all right. So I had that experience, knew the name Outsite from that. It was a great experience, but I just didn't know what it was. And then later on, I got an ad, weirdly, in the world of how ads work. How do they follow you around? And it was for Outsite, and I clicked on the website and checked it out. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I think this is where I was before. And later on, a couple of months later, when I was starting to think about traveling and working more, I remembered it and started looking into it, searching it. And then when I decided to sell everything and kind of go full-time remote, I actually became a member. And my first experience here in Lisbon, I stayed at Outsite. So that was kind of my intro to co-living. And it was a great experience. Was here for a little over a month last summer.
Oh, nice. Lisbon in the summer. Perfect. Also, I was at that event that you're talking about in LA.
I didn't know that, but I think we've talked about it. So maybe I did. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
It was some years ago.
It was a while ago, but that was a fun one. We had partners.
Were you leading that?
I was.
Okay. That's awkward that I said it was, I just didn't know what was going on, to be frank. I mean, we got there late and then there were no seats and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but it was a great experience overall and wouldn't be here without it.
That's right. We all find our path in,
Yeah. That's
so
funny. Wow. Well, that's how I got to know Christina as well.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks for sharing about your kind of introduction to co-living.
Yeah.
I think I first found out about Outsite on Instagram, actually. I was like looking for, at the time I was trying to go and stay in Lisbon for a couple of weeks, and I saw that you had a location in Lisbon, and I was like, checked it out, and so that's how I found out about the site and co-living all together. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let me sign up. So I decided to. I don't think I was a member at that time. I think I just tested it out by staying in Lisbon for 3 weeks, and after staying in Lisbon for 3 weeks, then I decided to become a member and stay in other locations. So that's how I first found out about Outsite and co-living in general. It's just through Instagram.
It's a great discovery tool. And what about you, Enrique? How did you first kind of learn about co-living?
It was actually a coworker who doesn't really travel, but he knew about Outsite, and just having experienced both things. Like I used to just rent an Airbnb for a long time, and that's great. You have your space, but it can be pretty lonely, especially in a city you don't really know anybody. And I've also, the other alternative is you go to a hostel and no one is working, and it's really hard to try to get any work done. And so when I first heard about co-living, I was like, oh, well, those are folks that also understand that you actually need to get stuff done, but they love travel. And also I was just like, wow, this is amazing, it's perfect. And one of my first experiences, oddly enough, was in Austin. It was when I was nomadic, and sometimes you have to go to your home base for a little while. And I spent, I want to say like 60 nights at the Austin house when it first opened, and it was really, really, really great.
Yeah, the house is it's beautiful and just, it's huge. It's awesome. All right. And I know we have a couple of questions here in the chat that I might ask you guys. And then we can also look at the Q&A boxes. But so the first question is, looking back, what soft or hard skills do you wish you had before becoming a nomad? Do you think that would have improved your experiences abroad? Or does it really make a difference? Was there anything that really set that apart for your before you started traveling?
I think one skill that's really important. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, I think one skill that's really important that I've never been particularly good at was budgeting. Because travel can add up, and if you just like go out every day and like just eat at restaurants, like yeah, you can start to like dig a hole in your bank account. But yeah, I do wish I had a better understanding of like budgeting and tracking expenses back when I started, the nomadic lifestyle. But eventually, I did learn better how to budget and also like keep track of expenses like in different currencies when you're traveling. So that's a really important skill to have if you do want to live the nomadic lifestyle, just being able to track your expenses, like, have a budget for how much you're going to spend on like activities, like maybe sightseeing and things like that, transportation, all of that. So like maybe a spreadsheet would be helpful. Like there's different templates and things like that you can use out there. Yeah, but budgeting is very important.
I want to speak to that just for a second, because on the flip side, one of the things that I always get asked, so many people ask me, is how do you afford what you do? And I think there is a way to do it. Part of that is slow travel, but I also just want to emphasize how affordable it can be to travel. I have a friend right now who is from New York. She lived in LA, moved to New York, and then her lease expired during the pandemic, and she decided not to renew it. And she has gone down to Nashville. She's in Nashville right now and living out of an Airbnb. And she's just texted me today, and she's like, my Airbnb for a month in Nashville is cheaper than my lease in New York, and my flight, granted it's during a pandemic, but was like $39. And you can find ways to, find good deals on flights, live. And if you don't have rent you're paying at home, oftentimes you can find ways to live in a new city for the same or less than you were paying in a lot of US cities. That's for the US specifically. And then, yeah, keeping track of expenses, that's a great note. Just not eating out all the time. You're not on vacation, as Outsite loves to say. You have to live as if you're living. I think building a routine is so important. Going to the grocery store, cooking, finding a place where you can cook, which is why Outsite spaces are great. They all have kitchens, but if you're in an Airbnb or whatever accommodation, hotel rooms aren't great because it's one, expensive, and two, you're eating out all the time. So there are ways to do it that make it really affordable in comparison to what it would cost in a lot of US cities traditionally.
And we have another question here from Kirk that I really love because I've been grappling with this one too. What hobbies did you have to choose to leave behind, or were you able to continue your hobbies on the road, or did you pick up new hobbies as a nomad? Or do you even have hobbies, or is it just travel? Travel and business.
There's a t-shirt, it's just so geeky and nerdy, but I love that if anyone reads the blog, The Points Guy, they have a t-shirt that says travel is my sport. And I think a lot of us can sympathize with that. Just love doing that. But hobbies, I'll let you guys kick it off.
I tried a couple of things. I even picked up the harmonica, like didn't really work for me, but I was like, hey, it's little, you know, some people can make awesome music with it. I picked up a ukulele. Poi dancing is actually also pretty cool. You know, it doesn't take a lot of space. You can almost do it with anything. And also, you know, you meet a lot of really interesting people. But yeah, anything that is portable.
I think routine also, I just mentioned it can be really important, and that relates to hobbies because like for exercise, one of the things I've learned is it's important to build that into my routine. And instead of being able to go to a gym, if you're traveling from city to city, finding ways to exercise without needing a gym there is really important. So that's running. Freeletics is a great app to use that you can work out without any gym equipment, just body weight. There are a million ways to do it, but so for hobbies, that, and then also one of the brilliant things about travel is you have the opportunity to try so many different hobbies. Like if you want to try surfing for the first time, or you go to Outsite in the Swiss Alps and you get to go snowboarding or skiing, or you're a skier and you try snowboarding. It just exposes you to, especially on the cultural level, things you might never be exposed to, and get to try foods, cultural activities, all sorts of things. So from the travel perspective, that's a unique way to maybe replace some of your hobbies you're accustomed to trying new things while you're in new cities.
That's a great point. What about you, Samtu? How's your hobbies evolved during your nomad journey?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I guess one thing I really liked doing was volunteering. And so like when I moved to Spain, I also, took that hobby with me. So I found like, different nonprofits in Madrid to volunteer with. And I mean, I guess travel is my biggest hobby. So I don't think I had to give up any hobbies in order to take on the nomad life. But like, yeah, as Elliot said, like there's opportunities like, try new things when you're traveling, explore different new hobbies. And so you can, I don't really think you have to give up a hobby in order to take on the nomad life. Because like if you're a drummer, for example, you could easily find like a drumming community in different places where you live. So you can easily like fit your hobbies with the nomadic life.
I wasn't paid to say this, but the Outsite has the thing called WhatsApp, their like WhatsApp group. And I think it's so cool because they're always, when there are people in a house, people in that chat who are saying, hey, I'm doing XYZ if anyone wants to join me. And a couple of times I've said, sure, I'll join you to do that. And whether that takes you on a day sailing through the harbor in Lisbon, or hiking somewhere you'd never think to go explore, but somebody else takes you there. It's just like those community connections that you're not exposed to if you're, say, staying in an Airbnb or a hotel, but you have the co-living community. You get to meet people from all over, and again, expose you to different ways of thinking or exploring a city or whatever it might be. So again, maybe not what you're accustomed to if it's drumming or whatever it might be, but it's definitely unique to co-living and travel.
Totally. It just widens your experience in a whole different way, which is really fun when you're on the road, because I think if you're traveling, you are really open to those new experiences, and maybe even you thrive off of them. And that's been one of the hardest parts of, I think, this pandemic for me. I don't have that routine of newness in my life,
Yeah.
So that's just one observation I've seen over the past couple of months. So yes, and we have another question here about how old is the range of participants and like members at Outsite. And really, I can speak to that. You do have to be 21 to stay at Outsite, but we have a pretty broad range. I would say, everyone 21 through, I know we have members in our 60s. But the average, I think our average age is like 36. So maybe a little bit older than what people typically think of kind of a nomadic, location independent lifestyle. But yeah, and our community has a ton of entrepreneurs and founders and lots of creatives, but also a lot of people working more on the corporate job who have been able to have their remote work freedoms. So kind of you get a really interesting mix of people across a variety of industries. And let's see. There's another question here. Do you pay for accommodation on top of the membership? Yes. The membership is like a flat fee for the year or for a lifetime. And then based on where you want to stay, you can put your dates into the calendar, and then it'll tell you what the price is for that. But with your membership, you get like member discounts, and we also send out monthly deals, last minute deals, and new openings deals. So we just announced a new location in Cabo, Mexico. So members get 20% off of all bookings in October. So there's certain things that you get with your membership that make your stay more affordable. And,
can I rewind for a second?
yeah.
I think Brandon had a question about soft and hard skills. One of the panelists who was on here a couple of weeks ago, Drew Singh, he's here in Lisbon as well, and he came out with a book about his experience, and it lists a lot of those things like prepping to go nomadic and kind of the things you want to be learning and thinking about. So not to straight out plug that, but I think it's WF Abroad, workfromabroad.com, and it's like a 100-page book. You can order it on Amazon, and it's a really great resource. I've gotten the chance to flip through it, and really well put together. So
nice. I'm so happy he finished it. I remember when he was starting to write it. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's like a real paperback book. You can hold it in your hand. It's crazy.
Yeah, can you put the link? Can you type the link in the chat for everyone?
I don't know if this is it. Let me hop over.
I think your link is. I think it's right, but
It was it. I'm in there. It's cool.
All right, and we have a couple of other questions here. What is a typical range for room stay? If you're talking about price, that's going to be that's totally going to depend on the location. So someplace like Tulum or Cabo is going to be very different than Manhattan, and then which is very different from Lisbon. So I highly recommend going to the website, and you can kind of play around there. There should be different pricing if there is a shared room versus a private room, and it'll show you all the different options. And for typical range for room stay, I just wanted to talk a little bit about length here as well. As a member, you do get discounts on basically the longer you stay, the more you save. So if you stay more than 7 nights, you get a certain discount. If you stay more than 30 days, you get that discount. So I feel like, especially now with the pandemic, a lot of people are just staying longer in one place. I would say in general, maybe around 2 weeks is about the minimum. Of course, I think some people are still staying less, but I think a lot of people are doing that month by month plan now, or even maybe 3 months at a time. Perfect. And then let's see. Can one of you guys help me out on the Q&A box?
It was just asking what the typical range for a room stay is.
Perfect.
Which you kind of touched on.
Awesome. I think we covered all of the questions, and we have 1 minute left. I have one final question for you guys. If there's like one nugget of advice that you could give to someone who is kind of thinking about making this jump, this transition, what would it be?
It's not as impossible as it seems. So just take the plunge.
Yeah, on that note, just stop waiting. You never know what's going to come around the corner. And so now the best time's now, regardless of, I mean, granted the state of the world, maybe now is the best time, but again, you don't know what's going to happen a year from now or whatever. So just do it.
Yeah, I say make a plan and just take the leap. Like
The
there's so
plan
many
part's important too.
there's so many great experiences we had out there, and like, you know, being location independent allows you to just, you know, move around and experience so many cultures and different lifestyles, and it's so enriching to be able to do that. So I think it's definitely worth it. Even any obstacles that you might encounter along the way, like the experience is absolutely worth it. Like, you should definitely go for it.
I'm going to make one last plug other than Drew's book. Is I started with my business partner a podcast a couple of months ago called Hundreds of Ways. And it's all about the kind of different ways in which people live, a lot of times nomadic or location independent lifestyles, but very relevant to if you want to get started working independently or as an entrepreneur, just different ways in which you can do that and people's stories of how they got started. So humbly, I'll add that that's another resource that's been really fun to put together. And we've gotten some cool feedback from first time or potential entrepreneurs who have gotten some value out of it. So feel free to check that out as well.
Can you throw a link in the chat for us?
Sure.
Awesome.
Subscribe.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And
I wish I could.
What?
Sorry, I think there's a delay. I was just saying, Enrique said this is rad, and I wish I could see everyone and talk to all the other folks on here. It's been really fun. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much everyone for joining us, and really especially a big thanks to our panelists for sharing all of their information and their journey on how they were able to do this. It was really cool that everyone kind of had a slightly different take on it, but as you can see, we're all super united in our love for travel and flexibility and ultimately having that freedom to move around and have our work in our life be balanced and designed in the way that we want. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We will see you,
Christina.
Next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate you putting this together.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you, everyone, for joining us.